Hello, we welcome you. We open our space. We prepare ourselves to receive you in this place. We tread a few seconds and let people in. And so let me introduce this Aini Living Conversation 118th version is about the speech of our great mother. Our great mother speaks, sings, and with that song and that speech, she creates the cosmos that where we all live, and that is the great gift that we need to recover, and
Right.
the way we need to come back to the gift economy, the gift paradigm. And I'm with Sacred Blue Heron Woman, who's going to talk about this, who's going to give a lecture, a story, a not a song. Well, it's a song as well, because as she speaks about this, she creates in your imagination a
Right.
story. She informs you. She expands your consciousness as she walks along with her words, and that is the power that is required to make this happen. That is the first step and the most important step to get to where we want to get, is to be able to imagine it. And well, sometimes we can't imagine a world without capitalism, a world without domination, because we haven't ever heard a story about that. We haven't ever watched a movie about it. It's very scarce, very rare.
Right.
So that's probably why you're here. If you're here, you're probably already being led by your curiosity into this rabbit hole of consciousness expansion. And here we are, the 118th version of Aini Living Conversations. Welcome, Sacred Blue Heron Woman, and welcome everyone.
Thank you. Yes. So before we start, let's talk about a couple things. Last week we asked, why are we so obsessed with virgin? Well, in the old days, in the very old days, in our very ancient ancestral memory, to be virgin meant to be not married, not property, because marriage was always a property agreement, always between two families to make their shareholding, their someone's property better. It was always, and the Christian and Catholic Church has adopted it and tried to take that edge off the property so that women wouldn't object too much. So, but virgin meant to be not married, not belonging to any specific man. A woman who was one in herself, who was strong and fierce and chose who she wanted to be with when she wanted to be with him. It didn't mean chastity, it meant independence. And as patriarchy came into being, they couldn't understand that. So they changed it into this chastity nonsense. Second of all, it's been, I don't know if anyone's heard of this. My archaeologist daughter hasn't heard of it, but it's now, the theory is that the bubonic plague, the dark plague in Europe, was brought on by the wanton cutting of trees, the decimation of the forest, thereby disrupting the ecosystem that drove the rats and the mice into the quarters to bring disease. I can attest to, not to the disease, but to the wanton cutting of trees that surround every house in Oklahoma, that so we can see, right? We've got to see the vast expanse of land we have, and see when you drive by the homeowner riding their bad boy lawnmower, which is a display of the wealth of living in the country. But I can attest to the rodent population that's rampant in my house and destroying it, because there's no natural ecosystem around that contains them. So it's really, really kind of cool that I'm getting to experience what we've created, really. So anyway, with that being said, let's move on to the speech of things, the speech of Great Mother, the Holy Mother. So the timbre of a human voice singing a single sustained note carries an abundance of information for those whose ears are tuned to such clues. Information about the internal state of various organs in the singer's body and the relative tension or ease in the singer, the level of aggression or peaceful intent. We've been taught all our lives that meaningful speech is the trait that most clearly distinguishes us humans from all the other animals. And so we ignore that there exists a primary language that we two-legged share with other species. The bottom line is, when we speak of language, we speak of an ability to communicate, a power to convey information across a thickness of space and time, a means whereby some beings at distance from one another manage to appraise each other of their current feelings or thoughts. As humans, we rely upon a complex web of mostly discrete spoken sounds to accomplish our communication. And so it's natural we attribute to our species an exceedingly self-serving assumption. Other animals commonly possessed of senses far more acute than ours may have much less need for a purely conventional set of signs to communicate with others of their species, or even to glean precise information from members of other species. There is a layer of language that is much older and deeper than words. It's a dimension of expressive meanings that are directly felt by the body, a realm wherein the body itself speaks by the tonality and rhythm of its sounds, by its gestures, even by the expressive beauty of its poise. To the fully embodied animal, any movement might be a gesture, and any sound may be a voice, a meaningful utterance of the world. Certain sounds that reach our ears convey the felt intent of other persons, while certain other rumbling sounds bespeak a change in weather. A rippling sequence of whistling tones expresses the exuberance felt by a thrush as the sun climbs above the horizon. Other tones convey the dark magic of the night itself, speaking through maybe hissing tires on wet pavement. Our human conversations are regularly influenced by this carnal layer of language, the apparent meaning of a friend's phrase altering with the pace or tone of speaking. And we've so cut ourselves off from that with texting. That's why I've discovered the joy of voice texting.
Yeah.
Right? Because I can still then convey with my voice. Yes. The power of the spoken phrase to provoke insights in those around us depends on the timbre of our talking and the way it jives with the collective mood, or whether it just merely jangles in people's ears. In attempting a more nuanced conversation with a wide range of animals, it consists simply of us bringing our wandering attention entirely into our own limber sensitive body, becoming at ease with ourselves and the slow rhythm of our breathing. And then just commencing to talk to the other animal in our mother tongue. So I speak to my cattle, my pigs, my goats all the time. They get cursed at, they get yelled at, they get loved on. Mostly my goats get cursed at. Because they're always stepping on my feet. So if we speak honestly, and I talk to the trees, I talk to everyone. I'm learning this, right? I forget when I get in the food forest more often than not right now, I absolutely forget to talk to my plants before I start cutting them. It's just such a habit, right? 50 years of a habit. It's okay. I'm doing the best I can from here. So But if we speak honestly to everything around us, to the more than human world around us, the audible modulations of our voices, along with the visible alterations in our musculature, and we might not think there is any, along with the olfactory emissions of our skin, will all be of a piece with the pattern meaning of our words, and so will readily convey something of our intent at a palpable, visceral level to the keen senses of our more than human world. And here I would say the olfactory emissions from our skin, we work so hard to deaden that with all of the stupidity that's out there for us to buy to make ourselves smell good. So even when simply addressing a maple tree or a boulder-strewn hillside, you can be sure if you are honest and so relaxed within your own flesh that there are sensate presences out and about that are affected by the sound and scent and sight of our gestured intent. And so our loquacious utterances heard or felt or sensed, and it would be erroneous to believe with certainty that we are not being understood. This is the speech of Mother, of Great Mother, of Holy Mother. Everything is heard, felt, and sensed. The material reverberation of our speaking spreads out from us and is taken up within the sensitive tissue of the place. The activity we commonly call prayer springs from just such a gesture, from the practice of directly addressing the animate surroundings. Prayer, in its most ancient and elemental sense, consists simply in speaking to things, to a maple grove, to a flock of crows, to the rising wind, rather than merely speaking about them. Now, my daughter disbelieves me, but I have come to realize that if I speak to the wind and the rain, it listens most of the time. So if I'm busy working outside and I know it's going to rain or the wind picks up, like the day I was pulling plastic on the greenhouse by myself and wind was screwing with me, I was like, damn it, would you just hold off? You're not helping me. Would you please just hold off? And it did. I've called on rain many times. Raining, would you please hold off? Give me enough time. And she's like, oh, yeah, you don't, right? And I'm like, no, you don't realize it listens to me because I'm talking to it. Every time I ask raining to hold off, she holds off. Pretty much every time.
I believe you.
So as such, prayer was an everyday practice common to the oral indigenous peoples the world over. This more primordial style of prayer experiences the sensible world as the source of itself, as a kind of ongoing transcendence wherein each sensible thing is steadily bodying forth its own active creativity and sentience. So to the many Aboriginal peoples and to our oral ancestors, language was much less a human possession than it was a property of the animate earth herself, Great Mother herself, and the expressive telluric power in which we, along with all the coyotes and crickets, participate. This power is not restricted solely to animals either. The whispered hush of the uncut grasses at dawn, the plaintive moan of trunks rubbing against or on one another in the deep woods, or the laughter of birch leaves as the wind gusts through their branches, all bear a thicket of many-layered meanings for those who carefully listen. There is a man in the Pacific Northwest who has schooled himself in the speech of needled evergreens. On a breezy day, you could drive him blindfolded to any patch of forest and place him beneath a tree, and after a few minutes of listening, he would be able to tell you what species of pine or spruce or fir stood above him. That's amazing. That's amazing. That's work. That's kind of the kind of work that's worth something.
Right.
His ears are attuned, he says, to the different dialects of these trees. That's the speech of Great Mother. The difference between the spruce, the fir, the pine,
Mhm.
Meaningful speech can't even be restricted to the audible dimension of sounds and sighs. Our animate earth, Mother Earth, expresses herself in so many ways. Imagine an old apple tree in the spring breaking into blossom during the night while you are sleeping. The tree is speaking to everything around it through her blossoms, and the whole area is transformed by the satin eloquence of the petals. So language, from the perspective of us fully embodied humans, can seem to be as much an attribute of other animals and plants as of our own garrulous species. I'm not sure how you pronounce that word. Yet, as we learn from many of the traditional indigenous peoples among us, this is still too restrictive. Language accrues not only to those entities deemed alive by modern standard, but to all sensible phenomena. All things have the capacity for speech. All beings have the ability to communicate something of themselves to other beings. In fact, what is perception if it is not the experience of this gregarious communicative power of things, wherein ostensibly inner objects radiate out of themselves, conveying their shapes, hues, and rhythms to other beings and to us, influencing and informing our breathing bodies. Our own chatter erupts in response to the abundant articulations of the world. Human speech is simply our part of a much broader conversation. It follows then that the myriad things around us are also listening or attending to various signs and gestures around them. Indeed, when we're fully at ease in our animal flesh, we will sometimes feel that we are being listened to or sensed by the earthly surroundings. And so we can learn to take deeper care with our speaking, mindful that our sounds may carry more than a merely human meaning or resonance. This care, this full-bodied alertness, is the ancient ancestral source, Great Mother's source of all word magic. It is the practice of attention to the uncanny power that lives in our spoken phrases to touch and sometimes transform the tenor of the world's unfolding, and that is the feminine divine. Unfolding, evolving, unfolding. That's her power. The sense of inhabiting an articulate landscape of dwelling within a community of expressive presences that are also attentive and listening to the meanings that move between them is common to indigenous oral peoples on every continent. It's just not common to us who think we're so damn advanced and developed.
So falsely advanced.
Yes.
Apparently advanced.
Yeah, so our animate oral indigenous ancestors talked only when they had good reason to, choosing their words with great care so as not to insult other beings that might be listening. Human language for us moderns has swung in on itself, turning its back on the beings around us. We talk to people, we do not talk to the ground underfoot, to Mother Earth that we walk on. We've largely forgotten the incantatory and invocational use of speech in a way of bringing ourselves deeper into rapport with the beings around us, or of calling the living land into resonance with us, or of, I would say, of allowing the living land to call us into resonance with her. It's a power we brush up against whenever we use our words to bless and to curse, or to charm someone we're drawn to. We wield such eloquence only to sway other people, and so we miss the greater magnetism, the gravitational power that lies within such speech. We talk about things, we don't talk to them. Entranced by the denotative power of words to define, to order, to represent the things around us, we've overlooked the songful dimension of language, so obvious to our oral ancestors. We've lost our ear for the music of language, for the rhythmic, melodic layer of speech by which earthly things overhear us. And that's one of the most important pieces of living in the country, on a farm, on a ranch, is this. It every day gets deeper and broader, and it's to the point where you're like, wow, that's a damn happy bird out there. Or those are happy leaves. It's really cool. And we don't realize that our speaking is so monotonous because we speak only to ourselves.
Oh, wow.
And how insulting to the other beings, to the foraging black bears and twisted old cypresses that no longer sense us talking to them, only about them, as though they are not present in our world. As though the clear-cut mountainside and the flooding creek have no sensations of their own, as if they have no flesh by which to feel the vibration of our speaking.
Mm-hmm.
Small wonder that the rivers and forests no longer compel our focus or our fierce devotion, for we talk about such entities only behind their backs, as though they are not participating in our lives.
Mm-hmm.
And if we no longer call out to Grandmother Moon slipping between the clouds, or whisper to the spider setting the silken struts of her web, well, then the numerous powers of this world will no longer address us. And if they still try, we will not be likely to hear them, and we don't. I'm going to say probably 99% of humanity has no way of listening to the wild, to our more than human world.
Yeah.
They withdraw from our attentions and soon refrain from encountering us when we're out wandering, or from visiting us in our dreams. And that's what my philosophy has been for a while now, is like the giant redwoods of California. When they realized that we freaking two-leggeds just wanted them down, they just let themselves fall because we didn't want to talk to them. Same happened with the line of cedar trees that just got taken down. Old cedar trees, they just let themselves withdraw because it was very obvious that the human who thinks he owns that land was no longer willing to engage with them.
That happens when those kind of stories that I've heard where some living being gets sad because for so many reasons and dies, but then the modern humans can only and disease as well is modern humans, it has to be a virus or it has to be some bacteria or something.
Right.
It can't be because it gave up, or it was sad because his sister died,
because nobody wanted to interact with it anymore.
Yeah, things like that.
Yeah. We can then no longer avail ourselves of their perspectives or their guidance, and our human affairs suffer as a result. We have become ever more forgetful in our relations with the rest of our biosphere, an obliviousness that cuts us off from ourselves and from our deepest sources of sustenance, which is Great Mother, Our Lady, La Nuestra Señora. The propensity of our indigenous brothers and sisters to consult the animate earth around them, Great Mother, Holy Mother, listening close to her and through the land, carefully watching the pattern movement of other animals, attending to their diverse songs, signs, and gestures. All this is an obvious consequence of the expansive experience of language as a property that belongs to all beings and not solely to humankind. Given the near universality of this experience among native cultures, and given the fact that the abundant knowledge of indigenous peoples was traditionally transmitted orally rather than preserved in written form, we may suspect that literacy, reading and writing, brings a dramatic transformation in the human experience of language. Literate but non-alphabetic cultures possessed of more imagistic writing systems all exhibit a wider reflective distance from nature than is evidenced by the more thoroughly oral cultures around them. This distance is eased by the pictorial derivation of many of the glyphs or characters, which often borrow their shapes from elements in the surrounding landscape. And that's the kanji of the Chinese language and Japanese language. That's why the average person in Japan uses 10,000 kanji pictographs a day to communicate. A doctor, a lawyer, they use well above 100,000.
Wow.
Because they, as you see from doing the I Ching, the characters are meant to make a picture of the action of the something. It's not just a alphabet letter, 26 only. Those who read such scripts then are constantly reminded of languages linked to the more than human field of expressive nature. Only when a more phonetic system of writing spreads throughout a culture do its members come to doubt the expressive agency of other animals and of the animate earth, which is our great mother. Even through our animals, she speaks, because she is in them also. Only in the wake of the alphabet does language come to be experienced as an exclusively human power. The written letters of an alphabet no longer associate it with various entities and events in the surrounding earth. No indirect reference to the sensuous world. Instead, the letters refer the reader solely back to his or her own mouth. Each letter is directly associated with a particular set of gestures and sounds to be made by the human tongue, lips, and palate. So instead of windows through which one might glimpse the wider landscape, the letters of an alphabet function more like mirrors reflecting the human back upon itself. Other animals, to say nothing of trees, mountains, and rivers, have no place in this new sign system. Upon learning his or her ABCs, a human can then begin to dialogue entirely with his or her own signs without any necessary mediation by the surrounding land. The alphabet, in other words, opens up a new zone within the human experience, a linguistic dimension that seems wholly unaffected by the flux of time, by the life, death, life cycles of Great Mother. It is only in relation to this powerful new magic, this technology that isolates and reifies human speech, disentangling the human tongue from the calls, cries, and whispers of the animate cosmos, that it becomes possible to intuit a human-like God entirely outside the changing world, an omnipotent voice to whom we alone among all the animals are beholden. Indeed, it is this very magic that catalyzed the emergence of monotheism and the monotheistic faiths of the three peoples of the book. That very phrase, peoples of the book, should prompt us to recognize that the scribal nature of these three traditions, each of which has its codified origin, is in the alphabet. Monotheism is a noble notion in many ways, and one that has brought abundant gifts, really, to mankind. By loosening our enthrallment to the rest of animate nature, monotheism, always accompanied by its handmaiden, the phonetic alphabet, sparked a new and more detached curiosity in relation to our material surroundings, a new spirit of practical inquiry and experimentation, catalyzing an outpouring of creativity in the arts, in philosophy, and the science, in the invention of new technologies. I'm not so sure about all that. We think we're so great, but yet matriarchal cultures before us were so much more advanced than we are. And this detachment from earthly reality seems to have hardened into a cool and calloused imperviousness to the suffering of all other creatures and the plight of the living land. the ineffable and sacred one toward whom all monotheisms direct themselves, this God off planet, the intuition of unity and uncanny wholeness, though, is still whispering and speaking to us, beckoning us from beyond the monotonous hum and buzz of our worded thoughts, inviting us to free our senses from the verbal husk into which we've retreated. And that's Great Mother, Holy Mother. She calls to us from beyond the upholstered walls of these hollow caskets we fashion from the faiths of Abraham, Jesus, and Muhammad. She is the mysterious voice toward which we open our hearts, neither monotonous nor monologue. She speaks through every utterance of breath and beak and branch, through the bugling of an elk and the liquid blink of a robin's eye. And I would say the liquid blink of a turkey's eye, because I've never experienced a turkey until we received the gift of one at Thanksgiving weekend. And yeah, that's a liquid blink. I can't describe it, but that would be the way to describe it.
Okay. Liquid blink.
Liquid blink.
Okay.
It's like the eyelid is just a thin veil of liquid that descends over her eye, and it seems like it comes from all sides at the same time. It's just weird.
Okay.
It's cool though. So for many centuries, she seemed to speak from a realm entirely beyond the tangible, and promised a wholeness that far exceeded the scope of the terrain that we perceived around us, a floating eternity into which our fleeting lives might return. Such a luminous entity, we thought, could only be of another disincarnate dimension, for here in the physical heaviness rules. All is leaden, a burden, and painfully bound to the ground. We cannot imagine that solid flesh might float in space, nor that rough landscape that we see around us might compose only the merest fraction or glimpse of an immense luminescent body, a shape as perfect and boundless as a spinning sphere. We now know that our tangible world is herself such an iridescent sphere, turning silent among the stars. I wouldn't say silent. Around mystery, we just can't hear ourselves. Around mystery, whose life is utterly, eternally relative to ours, from out of whose vastness our momentary lives are born, and into whose vastness our lives, like those of our ancestors, our enemies, and our children, all recede like waves on the surface of the sea. Her rhythm, life, death, life. And we are all taught through monotheism that it's life, death, 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 and more death. There's no, despite the fact that she shows us every spring that life returns, our monotheistic ways, whether you belong to a monotheistic church or not, have taught us that it's all life, death, 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 death. And eternity, we thought, was elsewhere, now calls out to us from every cleft and every stone, from every cloud and clump of dirt, once we get to know Holy Mother, Great Mother. To lend our ears to the dripping glaciers, to come awake to the voices of silences, to be turned inside out, discovering to our astonishment that the wholeness and holiness we dream our way toward has been holding us all along. That the sacred and secret one that moves beyond all the many traditions is none other than this animate immensity, Great Mother, La Nuestra Señora, that enfolds us, the spherical eternity, glimpsed at last in her unfathomable wholeness and complexity, in her sensitivity and sentience. And that's all I have for tonight.
Wow, but that's not very little. That's a whole lot of very powerful words and very moving. I'm still kind of, like you took me into a realm, because I relate maybe to somebody else, this is kind of like weird, or like out of this world or something. But to me, it's it's pretty amazing to listen to somebody that is speaking about something that, I mean, it's weird to have somebody speak something that nobody ever speaks about, but that you're familiar with, right?
Yeah.
You know, in the native world, it's a common thing to speak to things, to objects, even to, because nothing is an object, even like things on your altar are alive, and you can speak to them, and and with your words, you get a clearer picture of all of this, with those words.
Yeah.
I mean, it helps me a lot to get a, and I was imagining, it's like everything is one song, we're all united, we're all one verse with different tones. We're all an orchestra, right?
Absolutely. A huge freaking orchestra, a huge freaking jazz band, a huge, whatever genre you want to, it's all happening at the same time.
And it's like, yeah, and it's like a single tune that is playing, and that's the amazing thing, where we fall into the illusion that, oh, I'm the drum, I'm just so different from that flute over there. We're not the same. And do we really are we really listening to the, but I guess in the modern world, we've been silenced. We lose that connection, or like you say, we speak only to, we only do the part. We've become, instead of having 1,000 channels, we've reduced our music to just 2 channels, me and the other humans.
Right.
And we cut off so many other parts of the song, and like you mentioned, speaking to the clouds, speaking to the rain. That could sound crazy to some people, but, or far-fetched, or I mean, even to a friend of mine that thinks he's very smart, he would just, I mean, some people just have a hard time getting and understanding that we're not, this is not wishful thinking, right?
Yeah. Well, and that's, I tried to bring home to Alexis the other day. What did she go somewhere? No. Yeah, she did. Where did she go? Maybe she didn't go anywhere. She just made the wish.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Back in 2018, I had my then boyfriend Ben bring his backhoe down and dig a pond. I thought he knew how to build a pond, but he just dug a hole in the ground right out here and that's where we built our duck house. And last summer during the drought, it went dry. But he dug it about 5 foot deep at the time. It's now no more than knee deep because it's backfilled itself in so much, because he just dug a hole in the ground. So, right. But the ducks love it. So it was getting really dirty, because the water in it was getting really dirty, because we had quite a stretch of dry spell again here. And so she said the other day, I wish this pond would either dry up, that we could pump it out, or that it rains enough to wash it out. Well, that was Christmas Eve day.
On last Christmas.
Yeah. No, just right. This one that just passed. Right. Yeah, Christmas Eve day. Christmas Day, it poured. Poured rain. she got her wish. And I was like, Alexis, you'd left. She was supposed to come home from work on the 20th and get changed in a big hurry for us to go to our string concert, but she ended up, so that was Wednesday, the 20th. She was left for work on Monday, then the 18th.
Mm-hmm.
It got canceled. That day got canceled because it was raining. So she went in the afternoon to check into the hotel, and the next morning they just shut the whole site down because it was just too wet to get in. But the funny thing is, before she left, she was like, I've been home long enough now that I don't want to go back to work. Because she's put in a shit ton of hours, a crap ton of hours since fall. Right. And so I said to her, then the morning of the 26th, it was either Christmas morning, I can't remember which day. Alexis, when are you going to realize that the universe responds to your wishes? And I gave her that. And I said, you just said the other day, you wanted this pond to either dry up or have enough rain to be washed out. And look how quickly the universe responded to your wishes. And she just smiled.
Yeah.
Like she doesn't believe me.
Yeah, it's hard to see the full picture. It's like we're seeing black and white, and we just need to come back to seeing the colors and getting the full depth of the song of the universe, of the actual, because it's science. That's the thing. It's not faith. It's not because I believe this and then coincidentally it happens. No, there's a, if you want to call it, a quantum mechanic going on.
Absolutely.
And we have a hard time seeing ourselves in the actual space we occupy in the universe.
Yeah.
We're reduced to seeing this idea. We're told that we're just a physical body in a third dimensional plane, and
that we're not even a physical body. We're a well-oiled machine.
And our consciousness is some weird phenomenon that occurs in our brain and stuff like that. And that's what education, the academies, everything we see, and the whole system, the whole society we live in is based on. So this kind
of opens into our topic for next week, which is freedom is all or nothing.
Okay, I like that. That's a powerful message, and I love how we expose something very profound here in the conversation or in the books that we're preparing. And there's always something else that needs to be told. But then we go on into telling that complements, right? And it's like the song never ends.
It doesn't. It just gets deeper and deeper.
And it gets more interesting and
more profound and more engaging and right.
So freedom is all or nothing.
Freedom is all or nothing.
So that's going to be for the Wednesday, the 3rd of January,
which will be my birthday.
Oh wow! And are you going to want to do that on your birthday?
Yeah, I think so. I don't know that I have anything planned.
Yeah, Alexis is still going to be there, right?
Yeah, well, she took me out to a nice dinner on the night of the 20th after our Christmas concert and told me that was my birthday dinner. I'm like, great, thanks. I spent my whole life, my entire life, not having a birthday because it's so close to Christmas. That's okay. It's not a big deal.
It's not even that close. It's close to New Year's.
Yeah, close to New Year's.
Okay, so I'll schedule it for then, and if you want to change it, there's not a problem. Don't limit yourself from a nice celebration if that comes up.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah,
so-
freedom is either all or nothing. And for anyone who listens to this and says, I'm free, I'm like, no, you're not.
not fully.
Not really at all.
Right. That's it. If you're not all in, it's just, you're not
You're not
there.
free.
Yeah. I like that. Okay. Already. So that's the invitation. Nothing else to add to this. So just wish you a happy Gregorian New Year. We'll see you on next Gregorian year.
Right. So, but for aloha, ainidao, adel, cohabitation de as we're still finishing. We just had the full grandmother moon just was full. So we have 2 more weeks of this year left. We're
Okay.
starting our new year on
With the moon.
January 11 with the new moon.
Okay. Already. So
And
we'll
also
probably,
around the same time should be a Venus-Mars conjunction, which happens every 2 years.
okay.
So Venus-Mars will start a new cycle of love.
Oh, wow. And then Maida was telling me, because she's very interested in astrology, that next year, next Gregorian year, is going to be very, very, everything's going to happen next year.
Well, I think so. We have, and this is why this next week is so important, because we now have, it's official, I saw it on Google, Saudi Arabia has now joined BRICS. There's 130 nations in BRICS. This means that the US dollar is no longer going to be the world dominator.
Okay. Yeah, so many changes are coming.
Absolutely, there's many changes coming.
Mm-hmm. So get ready, folks. Are you going to be free or are you not going to be free? What is your choice? And if you want to join us in our path to freedom, you're always welcome to do that. aloha@ainidao.living.com. It's a way to reach out to you, and obviously there are many ways to do that. So, and we're not the kind that are too busy to even look at a mail. So
yeah.
You'll find that a very different attitude towards everything with us.
Absolutely.
So we welcome you, and we will see you next week. With that, I'll end the live stream. Is that okay?
Yep, that's good.
Okay. There we go. Goodbye.